And we also have Barbara Byrne, who's the Vice President of Faculty and College Planning, and they are going to introduce our guest speaker today.
Well, thank you. I'm going to try to use some of those tips that we just learned in that last session that we had. But good morning, everyone. And I'm so happy to be a sponsor. Johnson College is very happy to be a sponsor of this personal well-being. We oftentimes look at our professional life, but not our personal well-being. So this is a great session to be in. And I'm very honored to introduce the first speaker, Dawn Zieger, who is the Vice President of Psychiatry and Behavioral Health at Zieger. In this role, she is responsible for the operations of a full continuum of behavioral health services, including inpatient and outpatient behavioral health, addiction medicine and substance use treatment services, serving Central Pennsylvania. Dawn is also an assistant professor at Zieger Commonwealth School of Medicine, supporting cross-disciplinary educational programming. Dawn is a dynamic speaker, change agent, and advocate for mental health services. She had led the effort to bring needed behavioral health care services to rural Pennsylvania through Vital Care while creating surge capacity for mental health services. Dawn has a passion for integration and transformation, leading multi-organizational initiatives to bring needed behavioral health care to patients across the continuum. Dawn has a diverse background in healthcare, payer, and technology-based environments. Prior to coming to Zieger, she led transformation programs at JBS Healthcare Network and Executive Director of Community and Director of Ambulatory Behavioral Health. She is a proud Army veteran with experience working with Patriot Missile System. Dawn Zieger received a bachelor's degree from Dallas Baptist University and a master's degree from Dartmouth College. Please give Dawn a warm welcome.
Take this mic. So it is my honor to be here today. This is a story that I've lived out over the past 48 years of my life. I spent a lot of years resenting who I wasn't, or who I was, and trying to be something I wasn't. It wasn't until I was 35 years old, watching a TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson that talked about the education system, and that some people just don't learn that way. In the quote he said, there's geniuses walking around thinking they're not smart because they learn differently. And that was my story. I didn't realize until I was 35 years of age what I had to offer the world. Okay, so I want to just recap, and I want you to think about the name in all of these. Each of us, Dawn, I have a unique set of abilities and skills to contribute to make the impact from the world. Put your name in that. Do you believe that for yourself? You are all uniquely created with a different backstory, different formative experiences to be able to make a unique impact that only you can make. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of my formative experiences. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see my husband, my two kids. We've been married 25 years this year, which has taught me patience. It's taught me relationships are work, and it's taught me to have good friends around you when things are hard. In the bottom left, the person in the middle, believe it or not, with the machine gun. During the Army times, I learned how to lock in when things get stressful. When things get stressful, I get quiet, I get strategic, and my mind starts to formulate options. Works well for me in the Army, works well for me professionally, but as a mom of a teenager, when things get chaotic and I get quiet and I pull back, it doesn't work as well. In the upper right-hand corner, this is our annual tradition, making Christmas cookies, and we make them and send them all over the country. We make about 1,000 every year. And as the kids grumble, oh, do we have to do it again? When we actually do it, it's something I think they'll remember their whole life. So taking the time to just do something basic for your family that connects us is important to me. And then the bottom right-hand corner, I'm actually a tuba player. So if you were to look at my resume, it goes from tuba to Patriot missiles to manufacturing to insurance. So I have a variety in my background. But playing the tuba is an interesting thing because you have to own your part and you have to understand what everybody else around you is doing. And that conductor leads all these independent people to contribute to the sound that can only be made when we all work together. In addition to these things, I spent time in Korea, where I went to the demilitarized zone, and I understood the impact of propaganda. I understood different governmental structures, and also spent 4 years going to Vietnam, where I actually sat next to the guy that controlled the media for the region. And one of my favorite projects was with a building that was donated by the Communist Party for us to put a community center in. And sometimes you walk into things, you think you know what you're talking about. And so I try and ask an engaging question, and I asked to these Vietnamese men that are coming to use the computers for the first time, so what do you do? Farming. What do you do? Farming. What do you do? All 30 of them did farming because that's what they had available in their region. And so that taught me to be sensitive, not to come in thinking I understand where people are coming from, to really think about who I'm engaging with. So one thing I'd like you to think about, what are the formative events for you in your life that bring unique perspective and ability? For me, it's not all sunshine and roses. I have a trauma history as a child. There's some things that happened in the military that never should have happened. And that's a part of my story too. That's a part of why I'm passionate about what I do. I have 4 individuals in my family, aunts and uncles, that have severe mental illness, state hospital kind of patients. I'm passionate about that. My father was bipolar and not treated for the first half of his life. And things happened that were not good. When I joined the Army, he got treatment, he married somebody I never met, and the second half of his life was completely different. And so those experiences helped me to serve every day. And I'm gonna be vulnerable a little bit. I also have bipolar. And it's something that I looked at with angst and anger and frustration. And now at this point in my career, it's actually really fun. You guys watched the movie A Beautiful Mind back in the day, Russell Crowe, like all the things? Yeah, that's me some days. And it's really fun and exciting when I can take different pieces of information, different structures, and apply them for innovation. So, you are unique. You, Jess, you are unique. You put your name in there. You are particularly remarkable. How many times do we look in the mirror and we think, I am particularly remarkable, right? But think about what you're actually thinking when you get in the mirror. If you're anything like me, I'm kind to everybody else, and guess who I'm the least kind to in my life? Right? So we aren't walking to the mirror saying we're remarkable, but that's what we need to be, because you truly are. You have a gift, skills, ability, perspective that only you can have. So I want to talk about even the most similar things in the world are different and distinct. So you see these 2 sweet babies. These are identical twins. I think. I got it off Google, but we'll pretend they are. So they actually come from one egg. That one egg splits, and then the independent lives begin. And as much as they share the same DNA, in a controlled environment of the womb, they start to develop differently. So those individual babies have different fingerprints because of how they progress. As they grow up, differences in their experiences and personalities help them to have a different perspective on life, but they are the most similar thing, but yet they are also unique. So how much more unique are you guys that maybe didn't have to share an egg or a cousin in the womb? You guys have unique gifts and abilities. And speaking of wombs, I don't know, I love this verse in the Bible. It says, you were created in my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. And when I was younger, I would think about the old clunky Afghan grandma made that was like orange and brown from the 70s. Maybe wasn't knit the best. But I've changed that. As I've thought about knitting, what is the most complex kind of knitting? It's a tapestry. So what happens in a tapestry as it's created? Thread over thread come together to make a picture. Okay, so from your perspective, you can see this woman, I think it's a woman, with a sword, you see that. The closer and closer and closer you get to that image, you start to see threads and colors that aren't obvious from a distance. You get to the closest point, and you can see a silver thread or a gold thread that's coming through this tapestry, that if you step back, you miss it, but it's an integral part of the tapestry. So what I think we as women need to do for each other is help identify those threads. We need to identify the strengths in our sisters, the strengths in ourselves that we want to develop, and we need to help each other be able to bring that beautiful tapestry that's already planned, that's knit together in your mom's womb. We need to bring that to the surface for all of us to fully be who we were meant to be. Okay, so this is one of my favorite movies. I won't spoil the punchline if you haven't seen it. But I love the affirmation here. So simple, that was said every day by her nanny and the daughter. You is kind, you is smart, and you is important. And in planting that in that little kid's mind every day and giving her that affirmation will stick with her. What are the affirmations we give ourselves? What are the things that we're repeating in our heads about who we are and what we're meant to be? And I know for me, many, many years it was unkind things. It was things that reflected back on an era where I was actively struggling with my trauma. I was making decisions that were completely irresponsible. And I weighed my whole personality against that backdrop of trauma and bad choices. And it took me 25 years, my 25th year or so, to retrain my brain. I am not that horrible person that I've been telling myself. I am gifted, I'm kind, I know that God has a plan for me. So I want to just pause for a second, and I'm going to ask a couple of brave people, I'm going to give you a minute or two. What does your ideal you look like? What are 3 words that describe the ideal you? All right, I'm going to ask 3 brave souls to kind of share what your thoughts are on these questions. I know they're big questions and I'm not giving you a lot of time, but your initial gut reaction, does anybody want to share? Thank you. Thank you, psychologist. You're going first. Oh, I know her.
I guess the first 3 things that popped into my head were hardworking, kind, and giving. I think that would probably be the 3 that I would say.
Those are great, especially kind. You know, my daughter, she's going into college, and you find out how other people raise their kids differently with different values. And her boyfriend, they're very academic. And she said, well, what did you instill in me? And I was like, to be kind and to serve other people. Well, you never told me that. Well, well, it plays out over time, kid.
What came up for me was confident, compassionate, and authentic.
And this is a young leader that is doing great things, so that's good to hear. One more brave person. All right, thank you.
3 things that came up to me were talkative, go-getter, and kind.
So who's gonna come back and talk about kindness? She goes to your school? Oh, hey, that's awesome. That's great. All right, so now we're going to talk about the comparison trap. It can be very easy to slip from admiration to jealousy and into a negative space with comparison. So women, there's one thing I think we all universally compare ourselves with. Everybody wants somebody else's hair. My hair's too curly, your hair's too white, mine's too gray. I don't know if is anybody happy with their own hair? Hey, we got one and you got 2, all right. And I asked this question to guys, and He said, well, sometimes it's about shoes, but it's more about their job role or what they're doing is where the comparison lies. So that's a silly example, but you get my drift. When we spend time trying to be something that we're not, maybe trying to style our hair to something it just doesn't want to do, we're not celebrating who we are. So then there's the selfie culture, okay? So you've all seen it. We've probably all done it. You're in a beautiful place, and you want people to know that you're in this beautiful place. And you might have just gotten in a fight with your husband because he didn't bring enough water, there's not treats, right? But then it's time for the selfie. Is that authentic? Probably not, but most of us do it. I have to think the girls on the right, though, I have to think they're authentic. I don't think you could make that up. So just be thinking about social media. And this is for us old people that use Facebook. I know Facebook's like not the thing now. It's Insta and Snap, right? Insta and Snap? No? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, my daughter says grandmas use Facebook, and I'm like, I'm not a grandma yet, but cool. So think about what we just demonstrated. We took a situation that was okay, we made it look marvelous, and then we moved on. Somebody else is at home looking at everybody else as marvelous and saying, what is wrong with my life, right? You're looking at the best curated parts, that moment in time of other people's situations, and it can really take a toll on your mental health if you don't have that perspective of the selfie, we should call this selfie, like the selfie disease or something. So just keep in mind, social media is great. From my perspective, I've moved all over the country. I still stay connected with people that I enjoy. But it can really be a trap if you're feeling in a vulnerable place. All right, so like Abigail Geisinger, I love that she told you about Abby. I love that we were founded by a woman this morning. Eleanor Roosevelt was just absolutely phenomenal and way ahead of her time. And her quote here says, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So this is where it's really important to surround yourselves with the right people. There's times, especially earlier in my journey, where I was just desperate for that friend group or desperate to be in a certain circumstance, and I would push into things that were not positive for me. And as time's gone on, I'm not that old, I'm 48, but as time's gone on, I've really sought to find those relationships where iron sharpens iron and we make each other better. It doesn't mean that we don't have hard conversations. It doesn't mean that, boy, somebody challenged me really hard when I was pregnant at 39 with my son and said, you're focusing way too much on work. You need to focus on growing that baby. You know, you need those kind of relationships that give you positive and constructive feedback. So Eleanor was way ahead of her time. She was the first lady. She was a United Nations diplomat, but she talked about the hard things in that time. She was talking about politics. She was talking about women's rights. She was talking about racial equity in a time that, boy, she was sure sticking her neck out. And so there are a lot of women throughout history that have paved the path for us today. All right, so now we're going to get a little bit tactical because I want to leave you some real toolkits. So even with our uniqueness, we spend a lot of time trying to do or be something different. All that energy chasing something that you are not doesn't help you celebrate and develop who you are. So this guy, he's great, right? Albert Einstein, one of the great minds of his time. I love this quote. So everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. I'd not heard this one until my AI tool helped me find this quote, but I thought it was great because it really emphasizes the fact that we've got to invest our energy to grow and develop those threads and that tapestry that are going to make your whole picture come together. All right, so the first tool I want to introduce to you is Working Genius. This is a book that's written by the Lenciati team, who's done 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, a bunch of different things. This is a really nice kind of entry-level tool to start and kind of understand who you are. So, I'm going to be vulnerable, and I will tell you some of my background and what I came out. So, of the 5 geniuses, I have discernment. And I think that is because if I look at the formative years and what I've done, what are those experiences? I've seen a lot of different things. I've been in multiple job situations. I've launched missiles and I've played the tuba in East Germany. So I have a lot of skill set and discernment because I've seen a lot of things. And then invention, I will tell you, I drive my folks crazy. Don't ever give me something that's stable and doesn't need to be transformed. I will screw it all up. Because this is the land I live in, is changing things and hopefully making them better. All right, so the second tool, this is probably my favorite. This is Strength Finders, and the whole theory in Strength Finders is just what we've been talking about. You can only grow the things that you're not good at or not gifted in so much. But if you focus on your strengths, you can grow them even further and be more impactful. So I'm going to share with you my strengths and kind of how they relate to some of the things we've already talked about. Okay, so 2 of these things I think are related to my Army experience. So strategic. I can create alternative ways to proceed. I can face any scenario and quickly spot the relevant patterns. And then command. There's times I found myself walking. It was funny. I was like in a place I'd never been. And I looked back and there's like 8 people behind me. And I was like, I don't know where I'm going. But just because I walked confidently, people followed. So, hey, there's a lesson there. The second and the fourth, which is input and ideation. So this is where my mental illness, bipolar, it doesn't hurt me, it helps me. I absolutely love to read all kinds of random things. I get on something for a month, I'm as happy as can be. There's papers all over my office. And ideation, taking that and turning it into something different. And so a lot of the things we're doing with behavioral health, people go, oh my gosh, it's so innovative. And I was like, nah, primary care did it 10 years ago, but if you want to say it's innovative, that's fine. So that is something that's unique to me because of my makeup and my formative situation. And then the last is significance. And to me, I tie that to my faith. When I was in my early 20s, really in that lost time, not healthy, trauma, acting out, I wrote in my Bible a verse that's in Proverbs. It says, do your work with excellence, and it will be set before kings. And come to find out, I moved to Bloomsburg, and to me, this was the middle of nowhere. I came from Fort Worth, and I thought, what am I doing here? And since I've been there, I've been able to be involved with events at the United Nations. I've been consulted by the White House, and I'm like, how does this happen? And so knowing there's a bigger plan, and that I'm in this situation for a purpose, really helps. And the last tool I will share with you is a funny story. So I created this one time. I was frustrated with my job. I was in my early 20s, and I thought, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. So I created this interest and proficiency matrix. So what it does is it has you go through the things in your workplace and prioritize them in terms of what do you like to do, what are you good at? What are you knocking it out of the park and you want to keep doing? What are the things you like to do and you're not proficient at? So that's an area that you can develop. You can work with mentors, you can work with your boss. In the bottom left corner, it's I don't enjoy and I'm good at it. For me, I can document the tar out of policies and procedures and wah. I don't want to do that. And then in the last quadrant is don't enjoy and not proficient. So I'll share with you just a couple from me. In the upper left corner, strategic implementations, casting a vision, and activating. Do you see how that ties into what my Strength Finders and my other things revealed? So people often go, what is that one tool that will give me what I need? It's not one tool. It's being a student of yourself, a student of leadership, and getting inputs from others. In the develop category, I love applying scientific evidence to practice, something that when I crazily ended up at Dartmouth, I learned how to do. And then I don't like details, and I don't like statistical analysis, so I will never be a writer of public health content, though I like to read it voraciously. Okay, so now your last tool, and this is, to me, the most impactful. Mentors and colleagues. You have a vast supply of intelligence, passion, wisdom that's within your fingertips. It's the people around you that you work with every day. It's the boss that you like to work with 5 years ago that really gets you. You have these people in your life. So I want to talk a little bit about Helen Keller. I think probably most are familiar with her story. She was deaf and blind, and in a time where there really wasn't disability accommodations. She had a helper named Anne Sullivan who taught her by doing the letters in her hands how to read and write. So here's this woman that probably would have lived a quiet life somewhere away, and Anne Sullivan, who found a passion for something that had never been done. So I see this person, I want to unlock this person, and I'm going to find a way to do it. And because of that mentorship of Anne Sullivan, Helen Keller wrote 14 books. She was the first individual to graduate with a bachelor's degree that was both deaf and blind. Without that mentorship, this would have looked very different. So in that context, let's think of that quote, "Alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much." All right, so mentorship. Sounds a little scary, like how do I approach somebody? Feels a little bit like dating if you haven't done it before. It's uncomfortable, don't swipe left, swipe right, whatever you do these days, I don't know. But it's a situation where anytime I've asked, people have been open. So think about something that you want to develop. Maybe it's in your matrix of you're not proficient, but you enjoy to do. Find that person that knows how to do it and ask them if they would teach you. You can do it in such a way that honors their gifts and abilities while you're asking for support. So here's a couple of examples on how to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to nerd out a little bit and show you my true colors. Thinking about mentors, they all have different purposes and for different seasons. So I have a mentor, he's so funny. He was a Harvard man with his man purse, very East Coast, and I'm a little bit of a hot mess. Like I get excited and I go forward and he's very measured. And this person was at the end of his career, I was at the beginning. And he has mentored me over the years and helped me really mature as a leader and celebrate our differences and understand how to work together in a different way. So my first mentor, if I were to make my dream board of directors, would be Betty White. Just because she's got a lot of runway. She's done a lot of things and she's stinking funny. And I think humor holds one of my high priorities. All right, the second is a very serious dude. That's Yoda. Yoda's favorite quote is do or not do not try. So Yoda is going to teach us the Force, how to navigate. He's going to teach us what to do. Now, you all might not be familiar with Gandalf the Grey, Lord of the Rings. So Gandalf could work as a connector with different people groups. So he worked with the dwarves, he worked with the fairies, he worked with the hobbits, and he navigated them through difficult times because he knew how to work with a ton of different people. I also have people, I forgot the other two, 007, right? Who wouldn't want 007 as a mentor? I mean, that's cool. So, he's got specialized knowledge in a particular area, so he would be thinking tactically about how do we navigate a situation, how do we get intelligence to know what's possible. And then last, you may or may not know, Ina Garten. I'm a big cook. She's the barefoot Contessa. So I'm like, she would be my friend. She'd offer emotional support while we're having a glass of wine and maybe making some tapas. So that would be my personal board of directors. But the point is, everybody has something different to offer. And there may be seasons I need 007. There may be times I need him to go away because I don't need to be that tactical. I need to chill out and enjoy the ride. There may be times I need somebody to help push me ahead. I've had a couple key moments where people in my life have said, you need to think bigger. And these are mentors in my life. And so as I was thinking about my next step, I'm a first-generation college grad, really didn't understand academia, got my bachelor's degree while I was working, and I thought, I need to do a little bit more. So one of my mentors said, you have to think bigger. And I was happy at the time. I was working in homeless healthcare. I was on the streets, in the woods, and then going to the fancy smancy clubs with my philanthropy partners and raising money. I was happy. And he recognized that I couldn't see beyond today and my limit, that there was way more to happen for me. And that's played out over time. So I moved to Pennsylvania in a director level role 6 years ago. And now I have my dream job of being the vice president of behavioral health, where we literally get to help each other every day. And as a kid with a limited vision, I wanted to be a cook. I didn't even understand what was possible. So finding people that can speak to your life, that can see those things you need to grow, the things that need to go, and the things that you need to amplify is critically important. And I will tell you, people don't say no. People are really happy to help with these kind of things. Now, a little bit of etiquette. So follow the lead of the mentor. So I had one mentor, she's awesome. She got a ton of different experience. She would, if I'd have a problem, she'd immediately say, hey, text me, let's talk right now, pick up the phone. I have another mentor, it's a little more structured. We get on the schedule every other week or just ad hoc as needed. Establish your norms up front. So is this a person that is okay with a Teams chat during the middle of the day, or is this a person that prefers scheduled time? Is after hours okay? Do you want to have lunch? So having that conversation up front. I know this is nerdy because mentoring can seem soft, but what are your objectives? Are you looking for Yoda? Are you looking for 007? Or are you looking for the Barefoot Contessa? What is it that you need right now? And when I moved to Pennsylvania, Geisinger is a huge organization. I immediately found somebody that knew how to navigate the system and worked on how are leadership decisions made? Who's in the room? What are the processes? How can I position myself well to get something over the line? And that person was a great mentor my first 2 years. Once I kind of transitioned to another role, it was another mentor that I needed. So this may seem a little formal, but when I don't know people, I want to make sure they don't get stuck in the mentorship loop. Sometimes, and I've had this happen to me, folks aren't progressing. We've gotten to the value point where I've given you what I can give you and it's time for you to fly, little birdie, but people want to hang on because of that emotional kind of connection. So what I did was create a formal mentoring agreement, and actually this is the mentor I was talking about. I needed a better understanding of the opportunities and activities that create value between what I was doing personally, which was going to get a public health degree at Dartmouth, and professionally at Geisinger. I wanted to get a better understanding for best practice leadership, so leadership looks different organizations, and develop a career pathway for future leadership positions. I wrote this probably 6 years ago, and this has really played out nicely, and her wisdom was really, really helpful. All right, oops, did I go the wrong way? Okay. So transitioning to the end, giving you some tools, challenge you to think about your strengths. I don't want this to be something that just sits and you ruminate on. I want you to think about one action that you can take based on what you've heard this morning in the big room, what you've heard here, what you're going to hear this afternoon. Think about just one thing that you can take away and commit to. Sometimes we all get excited, we hear all this information, and then I want to do this, and I want to do, if you look at my notebooks, they look like that. But it's that one thing, that one decision that builds on the other good decision, that builds on an additional good decision that leads to that development journey for all of you. So this is my challenge to you, is to think about what commitment to growth will you make after today at Empower. Thank you.
And we do have several questions that were placed in the app. So the first one is, how do I find me when I am many different things to different people?
Whew, that's a hard one. Yeah, I would say that's something that I'm currently struggling with. I feel like in the workplace, I do a pretty good job. I build relationships. I got an 18-year-old daughter that's just like her mother, and boy, is it a struggle sometimes. I literally had a situation where there was a patient that expired and was going through the case and making sure everything was okay. And I come home and my daughter had a scuff on her new shoes and was just despondent. And I was like, I don't know how to engage in this. So it's something that I am actively working on. I actually just started therapy to work at mom mode, like a mom mode and taking care of myself mode, because I'm good at the external things. So I think you finding people that can speak into your life in the different domains, being realistic about your expectations for yourself, and ensuring that you have folks that you can really connect with. We are not meant to live life alone. Whether it's being a mom of a teenager and a precocious 9-year-old, whether it's being an adult student, there's no way I could have done that without community. So I would encourage whoever asks this question to think about the people in the domains of your life that you can connect with that can help you explore that.
Next question. How do I avoid personal goal burnout?
Ooh, well, you know what we all do. We set too many goals for ourselves sometimes, right? So I have a team of really productive folks, and they said, we're going to do these 120 things in the next 90 days. And I don't know, Jen, how many did we get done? Like 30, not 0. Come on, girl. You know, we got 20 done. So I think some of the burnout is the things that we put upon ourselves. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a woman leader that's a director, and she's been in leadership a couple of years, and she said, but I gotta do this, but I gotta do this. And I'm like, you have toddlers. Like, let's be realistic about what you can do, and sometimes we're our own worst enemy. I really, truly believe that. So if we can hone in on those things where it gives you energy, It's in your strengths, it's in your wheelhouse. Try and plan as much of your activity and around those things. I think that helps with burnout too. When I feel like we're being productive, I feel like I'm making a difference, but sometimes you have to look at the to-do list and you have to get rid of some things. Because we're not pragmatic sometimes.
All right, last question in the
Okay.
app. How do I get unstuck in my life?
Oh boy. I mean, we've all been there, right? There's a certain area of your life you're growing in, another area that's stagnant. I go back to finding people that got what you want to have and having lunch with them, having coffee, and understanding what drives them. And also truly, like if you don't have that community that can speak to you and talk to you about those strengths, about what they see in you, build it. You got to find a way to build it because there is no way you can do this on your own. So that's my advice is find your people, find your people.
Any questions from the room? No questions?
You guys are going to be easy on me?
Nothing? All right.
Well, I'll end with one comment. You is kind, you is important, you is beautiful. Okay? Thank you guys.